Welcome to Silmarillion Stories, where the Lorehounds, your guides to Tolkien's world of Middle-earth. I'm John, and this is our podcast of Túrin Turambar Part 1, the 24th portion of the Silmarillion. In this episode, we're going to be getting into the Curse of Morgoth, the kindness of Thingol, and the children of Húrin. And if you want to get in on that Tolkien talk, you can send an email to lotr@thelorehounds.com or visit thelorehounds.com/contact to leave a voicemail. One more note, if you want to support us directly, you can click the link tree in the show notes and get to Patreon or Supercast. You can get ad-free access to all of our podcasts, bonus content like Second Breakfast and Elevensies, and more. And today, my guest for this episode is again our favorite Tolkien scholar, Marilyn R. Pukkila. Marilyn, welcome back. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you, John. It's so good to be back, and I'm doing very well, thank you.
People know your background on Tolkien so far, so I think we should just get into it.
Agreed.
Can I get your overall vibe check background on this chapter? Because this is one of the three great tales, right? This is,
Yes.
Of Tolkien's Legendarium, there were three tales out of the Silmarillion that got expanded out from his writings by his son Christopher. Those are the Children of Húrin, which is this titled of Túrin Turambar in the Silmarillion, but then the Children of Húrin in the standalone work, and in the Tales of Númenor and Middle-earth. There's also The Fall of Gondolin and Beren and Luthien. So those are the three great tales. We've done two of them. We're going to do the third one soon with The Fall of Gondolin with Tuor. But right now, we are focused on what I know you're going to go into, a hero, right? And a hero in a very specific sense.
Yes.
So can you give us your overall impressions and then maybe go right into that?
Yeah. Well, my first thought to put before everybody is, I know a lot of people will say, oh, Beren and Luthien, this was Tolkien's love story. This was the most one personal hymn. I could make a case for Túrin Turambar being the most personal story for Tolkien, because he first got into the whole notion of the unfortunate hero when he discovered the Kalevala and the figure of Gulliver. And he just immediately identified so strongly with this character at age 16 or so. And it just kind of went on from there. He didn't stop with Gulliver. So, the title of my TED Talk tonight is The Three-Part Heroic Personality of Túrin Turambar. He had, 15 names that he gave himself? But
I know. I counted 3 in this portion.
Right.
But I think there's more coming up. And I just want to be clear, you mentioned it was an early thing for him. This was one of the first tales he wrote that eventually became part of the Legendarium, correct?
Yes. He did actually write his own version of the story before this one. But before that, in 1911, he discovered Kirby's 1907 translation of the Kalevala, which was first written and published in 1849. This is, of course, the Finnish epic, the collection of tales made by one Elias Lönnrot, who was a Swedish physician, and he spent all of his time off tramping through swamps and bogs and wandering in the north and the west to collect stories from the storytellers, from the original people who would sing these. They called them runos or cantos. And they were sung in a very specific way. Sometimes it was a single old woman by the fire singing a song, but more often than not, it was two old men sitting together with a third old man in the background playing the kantala, which is the Finnish national instrument. And they would actually clasp hands and rock back and forth. And the lead singer would sing the first line, and then the other person would sing that line back to him in a different form. And this gave the lead singer time to remember the next line.
It sounds almost like a round, but a twisted round.
It's not exactly a round because nobody's ever singing over anybody else. There's no two people singing together.
I thought they overlapped a little bit.
No, it's call and response.
Okay.
It's call and
Interesting.
Response. Yeah. So Elias Lönnrot published the Kalevala first, as I said, in 1849. But Kirby's translation was in 1907. And Tolkien discovered this in 1911, and in 1912 he spoke at a Oxford College Society about it, saying, I would we had something of that same sort that belonged to the English. The Kalevala set the rocket off in story. Again, that was his own phrase. And he said it was the original germ of the Silmarillion. Now, he said that about a number of stories, of course, over the years. That's one of Tolkien's characteristics. But in this case, I think you could make the case for it being the earliest germ of the Silmarillion, because this predates Eärendil by a couple of years.
Yeah.
So in those days, what he was trying to do was reorganize some of the Kalevala, especially the tale of Kurlevo, the hapless, into a form of my own. Now, those are Tolkien's words. Note the emphasis on the word hapless. I think this is one of the key characteristics of Túrin that people tend to overlook or forget altogether. Hapless, according to the OED, means destitute of or lacking good fortune, unfortunate, unlucky, incompetent, clumsy, luckless. So this word was first attested around 1400, and Tolkien felt a very strong personal connection to this character of Kurlevo, and so by extension to Túrin Turambar, who was the Silmarillion's version of it. So Dr. Verlyn Flieger did a wonderful edition of Tolkien's own first retelling of the tale. And if people are interested, they should really get a hold of the copy of this. Because, and then in this, she writes that the story of Kurlevo's own circumstances resonated very deeply with Tolkien's early life. Fatherless beneath the heavens, from the first without a mother. These are phrases that Tolkien was writing in his retelling of the story, and it's true of Kurlevo. Kurlevo was an orphan. And from the Kirby translation, Tolkien took almost word for word two very crucial lines. I was small and lost my mother. I was young or weak and lost my mother. Kirby originally said mother, but Tolkien changed the first line to I was small and lost my father. I was young and lost my mother. Tolkien lost his father when he was 4, and his mother died when he was 12. As a Catholic, as part of the King's Colonials Regiment, because he was born in the Orange Free State in Africa, so he was considered a colonial. This man who absolutely adored England as more than just a country. But he was considered a colonial because he was born in the Orange Free State. Right. He was an orphan. He was a misfit because he was Catholic, an outsider. He was poor. He was a rebel. He was hapless. Just like Kurlevo, whose father died in battle with his uncle, who then took him and raised him among those who would often beat him and viewed him as an outsider. So obviously, Túrin was raised in better circumstances than Kurlevo.
Absolutely, I would grow up in Doriath first.
Seriously,
if I had the choice.
I would enjoy that very much myself. But there is still this sense of weight, because let us never forget, Túrin is the son of Húrin.
Yeah.
And Húrin was cursed by Morgoth, who extended the curse not just to Húrin, but to his entire family. This must not be forgotten. So, the next hero we should consider is Oedipus. And to understand classical Greek heroes, I have a bit here from Bernard Knox's introduction to his own translation of the Iliad. Classic heroes of any gender were considered to be godlike, in that they were totally absorbed in the exercise of their own power and unchecked by any other consideration. Other beings are considered either aids or obstacles to the exercise of their own power. Unquestioning certainty of their own right and ability to make the right judgments is characteristic of Greek heroes. They are often violent, antisocial, and yet at the same time they would hold up the possibility for other humans to achieve godlike tasks. Often their stories include unwitting incest, continual striving against their own fate, and usually they do their best to overcome circumstances which a god or goddess has already decreed for their own destruction. So Oedipus ticks off all those boxes, and so does Túrin. And this is the piece of striving against the malice of Morgoth, which oftentimes readers tend to brush off and say, oh, that doesn't, how important is that? I think we are very focused on the power of the individual. But in ancient Greece, the power of the individual versus the power of the deities and their curses was as nothing. So this is the second of the three sides of the characters that put together who we know as Túrin Turambar.
I think we're gonna go head to head tonight, because you're gonna argue now for the impact of Morgoth, and I'm gonna argue that this family needed family therapy more than they needed help against Morgoth.
Oh, I'm in agreement with you, John. Sorry, you won't get an argument there, because I think Húrin was really stupid.
Yes.
And the one overweening characteristic of this entire family is pride, which goes along with the ancient Greek heroes. They were very prideful. That was one of their most, recognizable qualities. Who in their right minds is going to make fun of a god?
Right.
I mean, talk about stupid. I mean, sure, gin yourself up, say, I'm not going to give in, I'm not going to give in, I'm not going to give in. But don't tell this creature, who was one of the oldest beings in existence and more powerful than any others below Ilúvatar, that he's going to fail, that he's stupid, that he's all these things, because that's when not just you, but your whole family is sunk. So everybody praises Húrin to the skies and loves Aure and Dúleva. Day will come again. And they just overlook this one little thing, that he really has a lot of responsibility to bear for what happens to his wife and all his children.
I know. There's another emotion that I want to bring up here, and I want to see if this dovetails with your hero theory here, is fear. I kept noticing the word fear pop up in this chapter, and I did a quick, in my Kindle, search for fear. And by my count, there are 20 uses of the word fear or its conjugations in this chapter alone.
Interesting.
It is constant. Morwen fears for her son, and Túrin fears consequences, and the orcs fear that he ran away. The Morgoth fears Túrin, but whatever else. I don't remember the other examples. I wrote them down as we go through, some of them at least. Some of the ones that jumped out to me. And I think that fear of loss being a driver of behavior is something that has been picked up by developmental psychologists like Carol Gilligan. You and I have a lot of love for her work.
We certainly do.
And we absolutely see Túrin just completely avoiding dealing with his fear of loss in ways that are completely damaging to himself. And it is in part pride. I mean, Tolkien makes that clear. He calls it out at certain points. But I think this fear of loss, fear of consequences, fear of being wronged is a large part of this too.
I completely agree with you. And I think fear is one of those layering things, like anger. I'm sorry. Pride is one of the layering pieces, like anger, that overlays fear. Yeah. That overlays grief. And yes, if you start piling all these things up and don't ever dig down to the source, then things are not necessarily going to go very well for you, I think.
Right.
And pride to cover up fear, very common. Very common.
This guy just needed a good therapist. I will die on that hill. Túrin Turambar needed a good therapist in Doriath, but apparently Thingol's health plan was not very good. Probably because the elves don't need too much healing.
Well, and because he never listens to Malian, so.
That's true. Although we see a kinder side of Thingol in this chapter, and for reasons, for not out of nowhere.
No, which we will get to when we get to that point. Yes.
Absolutely. Did you want to get into any other hero stuff, or do you want to sprinkle any of that in?
I have a third
All
hero in this trifecta, and that is Sigurd. Sigurd the Dragon Slayer. So I'm starting with a bit of text, which Tolkien put again in another one of his published writings, The Legend of Sigurd and Gudruna, which was edited by Christopher Tolkien, God's bless him, in 2009. If in the day of doom one deathless stands who has tasted death and dies no more, the serpent slayer, seed of Odin, then all shall not end, not earth perish. And Tolkien Gateway tells us some of this is drawing on, in places directly translating, the description of Ragnarok in the Voluspa, the first poem in the Poetic Edda. But its context and function are very different in Tolkien's poem. The fulfillment of this prophecy, as Odin ensures, is to be Sigurd, he who shall come, who death hath tasted and dies no more. Tolkien's reworking of Sigurd as a Christ-like figure is done with a light touch. A bit of subtle source reshaping here, a resonant turn of phrase there, and it takes nothing away from the original story, but invites us to read it in a new light, with new eyes. So Sigurd is easily marked as a hero because he's the son of a god, of Odin, and Odin created him in part to, clean up Odin's messes. That's a whole other story.
Right.
But Tolkien picked up on this basic idea from the Voluspa and translated as we heard, and then incorporated into several versions of his ongoing story of the Silmarillion. It was called the Second Prophecy of Mandos, which first appeared in the later Quintus Silmarillion as early as 1958. So we're not talking a recent development. This was right after the time The Lord of the Rings was published, when he finally was able to put his attention on Silmarillion and was trying to get it into publishable form. And, what he's talking about here is what Tolkien referred to in the prophecy of Mandos, Second Prophecy of Mandos, is the Dagor-Dagorath, the last battle, the battle of battles. So we can see similarities to Ragnarok, as I mentioned, to the Book of Revelation, and to other apocalyptic literature. Now, interestingly, Christopher decided that Tolkien had abandoned this idea for the Silmarillion, the notion of the prophecy in the last battle, and Túrin finally coming forth and slaying Morgoth. But Douglas Kane, who has done an interesting study on Christopher's changes of the Silmarillion, notices that Tolkien made the specific edit of rejecting the last sentences, but he made no effort at all to remove the part of the prophecy regarding Túrin, or the remaking of Arda. This would indicate that he had the intention to retain them. The continuity of the prophecy in the Legendarium is tied up to the complicated transition of the Silmarillion from Elvish to Mannish lore, as explained here. In that day, Tulkas shall strive with Morgoth, and on his right hand shall be Eonwe, and on his left, Túrin Turambar, son of Húrin, returned from the doom of men at the ending of the world. And the black sword of Túrin shall deal unto Morgoth his death and final end. And so shall the children of Húrin and all men be avenged. So finally, I think we have something here that really makes sense of Túrin being at the head of Elrond's list of great elf friends, of heroes.
Yeah.
When he says to Frodo, if you take this burden freely, then your place will be among the great heroes of Túrin and Húrin. Notice who gets named first and all the others. Your place would be among them. And finally, it's important to remember that in any of the culture's stories of dragon slayers, any dragon slayer is ipso facto a hero.
I mean, that's fair. You slay a dragon, I think you buy a ticket to the hero land.
Exactly. This is one who defies evil and struggles against fate. And this kind of person is a hero. Our contemporary notion of a hero is perhaps rather different from a hero of Norse sagas or the Kalevala or the story of Oedipus. And I think it's important for readers to keep that in mind.
Right. A hero has been morphed into more of a moral protagonist, right? And if if the protagonist becomes a gray character, we often call them an anti-hero.
Anti-hero, exactly. Right? Exactly.
But that's not so in classical tales, is what you're saying.
No, it is not. And I think this is something of a Christianity on kind of a concept. Prior to that, it was great deeds. And I'm not saying that I don't think heroes should also, have, morality and kindness and good things and so on and so on. I just think it's important to judge Túrin in his own context.
Right. And Superman is Space Jesus. You heard it here, folks.
Not for me, but yeah, fine, whatever.
No, I just mean like he's like a perfect moral person. He's super, I do think that, I think you're right. Christianity has a lot to do with the rise of this idea of the hero has to be perfect, not just good.
Mm. Yeah, and Túrin does some good things. He also does some really messed up things. And
he does.
There are reasons for just about all of those things. But there's also some other interesting things. I agree.
Yeah. Like he didn't. We'll get to it.
One of them was the thing that you mentioned was fear.
Yeah.
In fact, probably his worst deed came out of fear and confusion.
I don't think that's his worst deed. We're going to get to it.
Okay, we'll get to it. Let's get to it.
All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll dive into the actual plot. So stick around. We're back. Now, by the way, I just want to address for everybody, we've been gone a while. I think Marilyn was on the last episode too. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of personal stuff in my life, grief-related things too. And for a while it was scheduling, and then it was, I could not talk about Túrin Turambar yet. So apologies for the delay. I think we're going to be on a nice steady schedule through the end of the Silmarillion. So we'll try to stick to that once a month deal. Marilyn's going to be on at least the next one. I think a couple more after that too, but I don't think in a row. And and Marilyn will keep being on podcast with us, so don't worry, there will be plenty of Marilyn. But the point is, you're gonna get more Tolkien coming up. So for now, let's get right into the tale of Túrin Turambar. Morwen, the wife of Horin and the Lady of Dor Lomin, first had Túrin, then Lilith, named after Laughter. The latter who died. After Horin was captured in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, Morwen was pregnant with Nienor, named after morning. Before Nienor was born, Morwen sent 8-year-old Túrin to seek refuge with Thingol and Doriath, where he was welcomed by Beleg Strongbow. So, I just want to jump right in here. It's a little heavy-handed, J.R.R. Tolkien, with, Laughter died and was replaced by Mourning.
Yeah.
Little heavy-handed there, guy.
But also very common to classical texts and that sort of thing.
And, we put a lot of thought into baby names, right? I've had 2 kids. Put a lot of thought into baby names. You named your child Mourning? That's not very nice.
It is more mother-centered than it is child-centered.
It is true. I think you're right. Pride is big in this family. It's very like, this is my story.
Holy
for
cow.
all of them.
Holy cow.
Horin, and for those of you who are for some reason tuning in this time, just for the first time, don't forget that Horin was cursed by Morgoth at the end of last chapter. Told, hey, you're going to watch all your kids and family suffer, and you're going to sit right here and watch from the top of the world.
Watch with my sight. Mm-hmm. So this is not just human sight. He can see absolutely every ghastly moment of everything.
Right.
Even the stuff that happens in the pitch dark.
So Horin, with godly sight, has to sit for his own pride of refusing to, play ball a little bit with Morgoth. His family is cursed. Morwen won't move because she won't leave her home with Horin. You've got her naming her children after grief. Like, this is a family. We haven't gotten to Túrin's personality yet, and we will. But this is a family filled with pride.
Yeah, filled with a sense of their place in the world.
Right.
And who they are and who they represent. Being the Lady of Dorloman was a really big deal. And this just occurred to me. I wonder how much of this is due to the fact that not all humans were interacting with elves, but this particular family was. Húrin deliberately took service with an elf, which did have some good outcomes, particularly later on for, or maybe I'm thinking of another, no, I'm thinking of Beren. Beren had other good outcomes from that. And so, even if you're not, hanging around with elves all the time, there is a sense of, oh boy, I had better brush up my toes here, to use a Hobbit expression.
Right.
Right. I had better show the very best possible human behavior I can, which may or may not have been the truest representation of what humans were.
Right. I think that's probably right. There's a lot of complicated stuff in here that I'm noticing on a reread. Again, first, I just want to say, I think curse aside, these people seem to reject love and refuse to help themselves. Right. I mean, you always hear that, God helps those who help themselves. Well, I think that's true of the Valar and Eru too. She sends her son off, but she's staying in this occupied territory, right? She's refusing to leave her home, and perhaps that's not the right decision.
Well, keep in mind, she's also the lady of her people.
That's true.
And in the absence of the lord of her people, she feels all the more the weight of responsibility.
That's true.
And what are the rest of her people supposed to think if she runs away?
Perhaps she should be leading them. Although, can they get away?
Well, that's the question. At the very least, she is there possibly to ensure that one look from her will make some particularly threatening human. I can't remember the name of the group that was forced to lodge in the west. Instead of getting all the luscious lands of the middle that they wanted, they were forced into the Misty Mountain area. Not the literal Misty Mountains.
I don't recall exactly.
Yeah. But there she is. She's the only bulwark between her people and, the hideous depredations that are visited upon them by the invading army.
The Easterlings, yeah.
Easterlings, thank you. Yeah, it was Easterlings. I was going to say Easterlings, and I thought, what the hell was it really?
Well, I was looking at my next point, and it involves the Easterlings, so this is good.
Well, there we go.
There's this quote that she was secretly succored by a kinswoman of Húrin named Erin, whom Rhoda and Easterling had taken as his wife.
Right.
And I want to point out the power of women's circles here. The bond of women taking care of their families together, aside from politics. These are two women who, at potential cost, this woman is helping Morwen and helping the lady, rather than, letting that family wither.
Yeah. So there's a good deal of what a lord owes to their people and what a people owe to their lord. And in the absence of Húrin, Morwen is the lord, or more comfortably for me, the lady. And that has a responsibility as well as...
all right, you've swayed me. Morwen gets some points back for me. But she fears greatly for Túrin. We get that explicitly here. She feared greatly for Túrin. Again, fear driving the actions. And what a lovely little detail that she sends the dragon helm with him, right? This dragon helm, dragons in general in this story.
Not good.
Not great. Look, this is a generally full spoiler episode of this chapter.
Yes.
We're talking about the first half, but we will talk about the full chapter here. A dragon's going to come into play later, right?
As is the dragon helm.
Right.
Quite
the dragon helm too.
Quite significantly. It's an interesting mix, isn't it? On the one hand, she fears for her son. Good mother. I'd be afraid for her son too, my son, in the circumstances. Because not only is he a boy and therefore, suspect because more likely to, take up arms, et cetera, but he's the heir of Húrin.
Right.
And as such, probably the target for a lot more of the nasty treatment that's going on.
Exactly. It's kind of good reasoning, but poor Nienor just has to sit there and deal with it as a baby.
Yeah, and try to forget that her name is Morning.
Right.
That's spelled with a U, listeners.
I was just thinking
we're not talking about sunrise, we're talking about grieving.
For those who listen to the audiobook, it might be a little confusing, right?
I think it becomes clear eventually, one way or the other.
That's true. Laughter in the morning. That doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, seriously.
So one more thing. We see Thingol's mood was changed towards the houses of the elf friends, right?
Oh, listen to my slow clap for Thingol.
Listen, Thingol has been a dick this whole book. And now he's like, I made one friend. I have a mannish friend now. So now we're all friends now.
Not just a friend, but a son-in-law.
That's true. Although at that time, he was born. Yeah. So it would have been already done, right? Because he was born in... He was born in the year that Beren came to Menegroth. Was that it?
I don't remember exactly, but yes, it was in fact Beren's achievements and suffering that had softened Thingol's mood.
Who was born in the year that Beren Erkamion, I can never say this one, came upon Luthien in the forest of Neldoreth.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So,
and I don't know how many years it took them to achieve the Silmarillion, but
let's say fewer than 8.
I'm sure it was fewer than 8, because otherwise, why would his mood have changed?
Right. So let's fast forward 9 years. Túrin has been healing a lot emotionally. He's actually been going to his Doriath therapy sessions alongside his bestie, Beleg Strongbow. But after a lack of updates from Dorloman, he fears for his mother and sister. Again, fearing again.
Mm-hmm.
He puts on the helm, the dragon helm, and fights on the marches of Doriath with Beleg. 3 years later, he returns to Doriath. Now, if you're keeping track here, he's 18 now. He comes back a wild man and has his family mocked by the elf Syros. I love how even in Tolkien's writings, there's your mama jokes. Your mama's so wild. She's an Easterling now.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna push a little bit here. He doesn't become a wild man. He just looks like one.
That's fair. He dons the appearance.
And it's because of that appearance that the very shallow elf Syros says, well, if you look like that, do all your women folk run around naked in the woods? Which is a pretty serious diss.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty bad. Of course, Túrin is then goaded into attacking Syros, who then retaliates the next day. When Túrin gets the upper hand and makes Syros run naked, Syros falls into a chasm and dies. Mablung encourages Túrin to face the king's judgment, but Túrin refuses and flees out of fear of captivity.
There you go.
Afterwards, Thingol hears of what happened and pardons Túrin, and Beleg goes to tell the man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, again, for people who think that Túrin is a waste of space, we should pay attention to the fact that Túrin is loved by Thingol as a son, and also loved by Beleg, who is willing to put his life on the line to rescue this poor kid. I mean, 18, I'm sorry, is not an adult brain yet, right?
It's true. That frontal cortex is not fully formed.
It definitely is not.
Although, I don't know, these men, how old do you have to be an adult in Tolkien's first age? Because the men of the first age are not living, 60, 70 years. They're living centuries, a lot of them.
Well, I don't know. It may be that puberty is something of a determinate line. That seems to be the case in early cultures. And, I'm sure Túrin is post-puberty changes by now. But as we now know, biologically, he still has another 7 years to go before you could really say that his judgment is all that great.
Right.
And even Marilyn loves Túrin. She says, I would not have any say that Túrin was driven forth unjustly into the wild, and gladly would I welcome him back, for I loved him well. Now, if a Maya loves you, you gotta have something in you that is very special.
You heard it here, folks. If Sauron loves you, you have something special in you.
Well, if Sauron never loved anyone in his life, it was long before even the two trees were born or thought of. I'm sorry.
Don't give Amazon any ideas.
Well, we already saw them try to use some, right? Anyway, let's put that aside for now. And then when Thingol says, I really wish that I could welcome my foster son back, Beleg says, I will seek Túrin until I find him, and I will bring him back to Menegroth if I can, for I love him also. So how can he possibly be a waste of space if he's loved by one of the mightiest elves in the realm and a Maya, and one of the most beloved and honorable of all elves, Beleg Strongbow?
I think that's right. I also don't think he's a waste of space. I just want to be clear about that. Túrin makes a tremendous amount of errors.
Sure does.
As do we all. Hopefully less murderous than Túrin. But hey, there's people of all kinds.
Well, and let us also say we're not going around making our mistakes under a curse of the most powerful deity ever.
Nor in a warlike society as, a trained warrior. There are stakes that he's operating under that most of us don't have to.
Yeah, an occupied territory, which unfortunately many people in the world nowadays are operating under, but
right.
we are both blessed to not be at this point.
But I like this show me 3 of your friends deal that you're giving to Túrin. He's got Thingol, he's got Melian, he's got Beleg. That's a pretty good crew. I think
I'll take that.
He's doing all right. Maybe Thingol's got a few issues. Let's not give him too much credit. But
the whole point of the issues is if even Thingol thinks he's good, Thingol, who is quite famous for his low opinion of humans.
That's true.
There were many people who thought that Túrin himself was elvish because of his appearance, because of his behaviors, because of his skill, all those things. Which is not necessarily a recipe for being loving, don't get me wrong, but I'm being, worthy of being loved.
Well, let's bring this guy's ego down a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Túrin joins a group of outlaws. Beleg finds them and is treated cruelly by Túrin's companions who fear Beleg to be a spy until Túrin sees him. The friends make up. Beleg tells Túrin of his pardon by Thingol, and Túrin refuses it in the pride of his heart. Beleg leaves Túrin in friendship and sadness. And of course, we have the second name of Túrin this chapter, Nathan.
Nathan, I would say. But
Nathan. Okay.
Nathan.
It's got to be something besides Nathan. I mean, that just feels too...
something other than Nathan.
That feels too colloquial for me.
Definitely. And wow, is that ever an 18-year-old brooding over his wrongs by the world in general?
I know. And this is why...
my family hates me.
You sound like a Beatle there. That sounds like young Paul McCartney.
I'll take your word for it. I don't know the words of young Paul McCartney, but...
Beleg, I can't go back to... Oh my God, I'm not going to do this.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of nobody loves me, everybody hates me, so I'm going to kill orcs.
But here's the thing, though. It's made clear in this section that Túrin is not just killing orcs, right?
No.
Túrin is killing orc, man, or elf. Mm-hmm. And that is what I think tips it into... I can be interested in Thingol, but I certainly don't I can be interested in Túrin, but I certainly don't think he's like a guy I want to look up to.
No, I'm not saying he is. I'm speaking more to the folks who say that he's, not worth one's time or consideration.
Well, what I like about this part is that Beleg is like, look, I can't stay with you, right? I have duties to people.
Yeah.
What's the first thing he does? He goes back to Doriath, goes right up to Thingol, and says, can I have your blessing to go find my best friend? Mm-hmm. And your foster son. Mm-hmm. And Thingol, to his credit, says, absolutely, take your pick of weapon. Let's get you going. Let's get you on the horse. Mm-hmm. And he takes with him, Beleg takes with him Anglakel, which was a blade forged by Eol the Dark Elf. If you recall, that was the father of Maglin, who had a very dark chapter a few chapters ago. I think you were on that one, Marilyn. I think we did that one together.
I think I was too. I think I was. Yeah,
and It's, anything that this guy makes is going to have some issues. Melian goes and says, there is malice in the sword. The dark heart of the smith still dwells in it. It will not love the hand it serves, neither will it abide with you long.
Yeah, how many portentous omens can we cram into in one page?
I know. And Beleg, what does he say? He's like, I think I'm fine, lady.
Nobody listens to Melian.
He goes, yeah, lady, just wrap it up and put it in the sack. Thanks.
Yeah, seriously.
But she gives him some lembas too. Now, something that's interesting, and I don't think they make this. I mean, it's clear, but not that clear in the Lord of the Rings books, is how special it is.
Yes.
For them to be getting lembas.
It is absolutely special, and again, a mark of Melian's love and favor towards Túrin, because she knows that this lembas is not going to be just for Beleg. He's going to share it with the companion.
Right, and according to the customs of the Edalier, the keeping and giving of lembas belonged to the queen alone. In nothing did Melian show greater favor to Túrin than in this gift, for the Eldar had never before allowed men to use this waybread, and seldom did so again. So let me get this clear.
Yeah.
Beren, on his trip to recover a Silmaril, was not allowed to eat his mother-in-law's cookies. But Túrin gets to. So I think you're right. There is this magnetism that Túrin has to Melian and the other people of Doriath. Mm-hmm. Other than Sidros, of course. That guy hates him.
Forgive me for harping on the same theme here, but Beren was a full-grown man when he stumbled into Luthien's orbit and never really came out of it again. This is an 18-year-old kid. And I'm not going to call it mothering per se, but I really do think that both Thingol and Melian are feeling their responsibilities as foster parents. And that has also got to color their responses towards Túrin. But you can still feel responsible without necessarily feeling deep love. But they feel that too.
Yeah.
So they've seen this kid grow up for, I don't do the math well either. More than 9 years, yeah? Yeah, 10 years.
Yeah.
For 10 years. And after 10 years, they still have very deep affection.
Now, that being said, they could have just sent Beleg with regular provisions. Or said, Beleg, you take the lembas, but only for you. Don't share with any men. This is very important.
Yeah.
She didn't say that. She just gave it to him to do with what he wished.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why Beleg did go back and right away say, okay, I need to go on this quest to recover, my friend and your friend, as it were. He couldn't do that because it was not within his original remit. His original remit was go find our foster son and bring him back. So he couldn't go and stay out for 5 years or whatever, because I think after having seen Túrin the first time, knew this was going to be a little longer than what they might have expected. So he did have to go back to his overlord and say, look, I want to make this a longer absence from Doriath, and do I have your permission to do that?
Right.
So it makes perfect sense to me.
It makes sense to me, too. It's clearly Tolkien trying to paint Beleg as this he's the best of both worlds, right? He's got the love, and he's got the duty. He comes back, he makes sure. And by the way, on his way out, he's going to slay a bunch of orcs. And then once things are looking good for the elves, he's like, all right, you guys got this now. I'm going to go off and find my friends.
Right. Took care of the tasks. Now can I go off and do these other things? Right.
He's just got a nice cursed sword. He's ready to go. Maybe cursed is the wrong word, but blackened, let's say. Blackened with the dark heart of a dark elf.
I would call it a malicious sword.
There you go. Malice is a good way to put it in.
It's a very Tolkienian word, too.
It is, and also interesting that here, prior to the Second Age, prior to the Forging of the Rings, we have a smith pouring in malice.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking of, because it came into my mind about Sauron poured into the ring his cruelty and his malice.
Yeah. And just his essence, right? This is the essence of Eöl is going into the weapon.
Yeah. And I would not care to have Eöl at my side for any endeavor. Let me just make that perfectly clear. I don't care how good a fighter he is, or a swordsmith for that matter.
That's right. All right, let's move on. Túrin and the outlaws find the dwarf Mime. Is that how you pronounce it? There's such a weird symbol on top of the I. They find the dwarf Mime, who is from a dwindling group of petty dwarves, who were the original delvers. Oh my God, I can't. There's a lot of vowels happening right now. Who were the
consonants?
Who were the original delvers of Nargothrond. Mime leads them to his cave as ransom, but finds his son dead by Túrin's arrow. There in Bar en Dandwed, the house of ransom, Túrin promises Mime a gold ransom for his son. This is a sad scene. Just overall, like Mime obviously is not like the greatest guy in the world for a lot of reasons in this chapter, but he loses his son, and I think it's fascinating that even though Túrin is the one who shot the arrow that killed Mime's son, Mime is actually fine with Túrin the rest of this time, basically. At least through the end of the portion that we're reading today. He actually later pleads with the orcs not to kill Túrin. Although you could argue that that's because he still owes me a ransom.
Well, again, considering this in the context of Norse mythology, Sigurd, the dragon slayer mentioned above, was the foster son of Mime, similar to Mime, the dwarf who claimed to be raising him out of pity, but was actually raising him in the hope of eventually acquiring wealth through him, and specifically the dragon hoard that Sigurd eventually obtained from killing the dragon Fafnir. So an awful lot of the weight of Norse mythology is falling on this whole conception of Mime and the petty dwarves. And I'd love to know more about Tolkien's creative process and why the petty dwarves came into existence in the first place, because they're so unlike the Gimli kind of dwarves that most of us are accustomed to. But the whole backstory that we have, they were banished in the ancient days, and they were hunted by the elves after they had to leave the dwarf cities in the east. And in Beleriand, they kept having to hide in caves and things. They were still good smith crafters, but because they were hated and hunted and all of those things, they hid. They hid as much as they could, and were quite secretive, but also, here's your favorite word for this, John, quite fearful.
Yeah.
But I think part of the reason why Mime is so protective of Túrin, I'm going to read this quote here. Then Mime rose and looked long at Túrin. I hear you, he said. You speak like a dwarf lord of old, and at that I marvel. Now my heart is cooled, though it is not glad. And in this house you may dwell if you will, for I will pay my ransom. So remember, originally, Mime had owed a ransom to Túrin for being captured. But then Túrin owed Mime a ransom for the killing of his son. So, I mean, it's, why didn't they just say, okay, ransom cancels ransom, shake hands, and, let's be buds or whatever. But
well, I don't know if those two things were equal. That's why. Well,
fair point. But I think Túrin really impressed Mime. So yet again, he can be an upstanding dude when moved to do so. This
is the most unbelievable part of the chapter for me, though, that Túrin just had such a smooth way about him that he's like, well, you killed my son and I'm not happy about it, but all that ends well, and all's well that ends well.
So sorry, is that what Mime is saying? Because you said originally what Túrin is being so smooth. So I was confused.
No, I'm saying that Mime is willing to overlook. I mean, maybe not overlook, but forgive and respect Túrin, even though he killed his son, because Túrin spoke so smoothly to him. Right, spoke to him like a dwarf lord of old. I don't know if I believe that any words could have quelled him at that point.
But I do think that Túrin was speaking genuinely out of his remorse. I don't think he was playing, I don't think he was
No.
bargaining for his life or anything like that. I mean, I think he was genuinely remorseful and recognized that a debt was owed and said, I'm going to pay it.
But there is no debt that can repay the killing of a human being or a sentient being.
Think that. I don't think that. But in those days, there was such a thing as weergeld.
Yeah.
And so this is just a different version of weergeld, I think. And of course, weergeld doesn't have a great reputation. Looking at you, Isildur. But it was there. And again, quite common in the Norse mythology. It had the benefit of stopping endless blood feud.
Well,
although how well that worked depended a lot upon how hot blood was of the people involved.
The Norse. The ancient Norse, notably famous for their peace.
Their peaceful approaches to life. Yeah, not so much.
Yeah. Maybe
they had to be so hot-blooded because they lived in such a cold climate. It's the only way to, keep warm in the winter. I don't know. And I speak as a Finn, so I recognize the effects that living in a cold climate can have on a culture. But the Finns handled it a little differently.
I'll have you know that 23andMe said I was 2% Swedish. So, all right.
There you go.
On that note, we are going to take a break and we'll be back to finish the chapter. We're back. Let's get through the rest of the story, Marilyn.
Let's do it.
Beleg again finds Túrin, who remains unwilling to go to Doriath. This time, Beleg stays and heals the hurt and sick members of his crew. Mime is not happy to have an elf in his house. Túrin re-enters the fight against Morgoth, wearing his dragon helm and putting fear into the hearts of orcs. Beleg and Túrin become the bow and the helm and join the MCU.
And what does Túrin do?
Túrin gets another name. Mm-hmm. Gorthal, the Dread Helm. This guy loves a title card. That's what I'm saying. He belongs in the MCU. He's got names for days.
Well, he is a hero. He is absolutely a hero. And that's what the MCU, tries to be full of. And even as they turn to anti-heroes, they are still, heroes in that sense. And if having multiple names is one of the hallmarks of a hero, well, there you go. And it is kind of actually, getting multiple, I can't remember what the term is for when you have, they're not nicknames.
Alter egos?
No. The multiple naming of someone. I think the more...
Epithets?
Epithets, thank you. That's the word. The more epithets you have, the greater your fame is reflected throughout the world, right? Because if you're Simon Nobody, then who's going to give you an epithet other than Simon the Nobody? Or even Nathan the Wrong,
But can you imagine the business card budget at this guy's house? Like, I mean, you can't keep changing your name that much, guy.
Well, he just has multiple stacks for each name. Hands out whichever one he feels is appropriate to the customer that he's handing it to.
Oh, damn. Oh, that's my Gorthal card. Sorry, I meant to give you my Túrin card.
My Turambar card. My victor over fate. But we haven't gotten to that point yet, have we?
Man, this guy he has a penchant for drama. I'll say that.
Well, he lives in dramatic times, does he not?
He does. But you point out here that Beleg is actually the point who encourages him in part of this.
It is. He is. He brings Túrin the dragon helm, which is his birthright, let's be clear. But it is also the very thing that leads to Morgoth learning Túrin's location due to their success in battles against the orcs. So, again and again, the worst aspect of Morgoth is his ability to turn good things to evil. This is his inheritance from his father. This is his family pride. There again, that word pride, but still. And if you're going to live a life of, defending the world against orcs and such, having a really good helm is a really good thing to have. But because Morgoth it turns out to be the thing that finally leads to his own discovery of where Hurin's son, at any rate, has located himself.
Yeah. Well, we're at war again. The orcs find Mime. The dwarf leads them to Túrin as ransom. Well, he leads them to his cave. Túrin just happens to be there. But he requests Túrin not be harmed.
Mm-hmm.
The orcs kill all but Túrin, whom they take prisoner. Mime finds Beleg wounded and tries to finish him off, but Beleg awakens and scares off Mime. Beleg heads north toward Angband and in pursuit of Túrin. He finds Gwyndor nearly broken from hard labor under Morgoth. And may I say, Gwyndor was now but a bent and fearful shadow of his former shape and mood.
Well, this is Morgoth's act, if you will, Morgoth's story. And Morgoth, if nothing else, inspires fear.
Yeah.
Again and again and again. So, yeah. And I can't think that I would feel particularly valiant if I had spent however many years it's been, laboring in the darkness as a thrall to Morgoth.
Right. It's interesting. I wonder if there was a point where, we have parts of the stories in the Silmarillion, and I know that this is something that Tolkien struggled with, where elves would get kidnapped and come back as spies or corrupted, or perhaps made into orcs at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why Gwyndor doesn't have that fate, and why Gwyndor, is it just a lack of time? Is it a different era for Morgoth? Is he not transforming these elves anymore? Why Gwyndor? Why is he immune?
I think he's one of many who, after a certain point, Morgoth realizes he doesn't have to corrupt them to the point of being spies anymore, because their own kin will drive them out if they return, because they're afraid that they're spies. So once again, Morgoth accomplishes, the full effect with a quarter of the amount of effort, because people are afraid. He
is utilitarian, and thank you for making my point for me that this is all about fear.
Yep. No doubt about it. They lived in fearful times.
And Gwyndor, we know, was in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad. He was one of the, I think he was the only one who came from Nargothrond, was he not?
One of the very few.
Yeah, one of the few.
Wasn't he the one whose brother was hacked to pieces in front of him? And that's what led the charge?
You can fact check us, folks.
Please, that was somebody else. Maybe that was the Heathlim elves. So, anyway, yeah, I'm obviously getting confused.
You might be right. I just don't recall it.
Well, I know that there were two brothers, and one of them had been taken prisoner and then got brought out and hacked to pieces in front of the whole army as a means of drawing a major force out of their very strong position in the mountains.
Thence came only a small company following Gwyndor, son of Gwilyn, a very valiant prince, and against the will of Orodreth, he went to the Northern War because he grieved for the loss of Gelmir, his brother, in the Dagor Bragollach. So there you go.
Okay. So that is the right person? I don't know. Maybe not.
But it would have been the Dagor Bragollach that he was killed in front of.
Well, the whole point was he was captured rather than killed. But anyway, I don't read the Silmarillion once a week to keep up with everything.
Me either. We've been dealing with a lot of other coverage and life stuff. So, all right.
But listeners, be gentle when you write into us and tell us exactly what it was
on that issue, but be harsh on everything else.
No. As a teacher, I know harshness is not a good tool for education.
Well, don't tell Túrin, because he's going to be harsh with everyone, including himself. Beleg and Gwyndor find Túrin in the orc camp. Beleg cuts his bonds with Anglakel, but accidentally pricks Túrin's foot. Túrin awakens in a panic and kills Beleg with the sword, thinking him an enemy. There is a great thunder from the west. The orcs go into chaos, and they believe Túrin has escaped in the confusion, and they leave. Túrin and Gwyndor bury Beleg with his bow, but keep Anglakel.
Bad idea, bad idea, bad idea.
Gwyndor tells him his identity and of the rumors of a curse that Morgoth has placed upon Horin and his family. Gwyndor and Túrin are found by the Nargothrond scouts and are taken prisoner into the city.
Yeah.
And that is where we're going to leave the plot today, but we have a little bit more discussion.
Again, they're taken prisoner into the city. They're not welcomed. Gwyndor is not welcomed as a lost comrade who was returned out of all darkness and beyond all hope. Yeah. Because they're afraid he'll be a spy. Yes, as you've put there, then he was aroused into a sudden wakefulness of rage and fear. The rage all the greater, I think, because of the fear.
Yeah.
Thus ended Beleg's strongbow, truest of friends, greatest in skill of all that harbored in the woods of Beleriand in the elder days, at the hand of him whom he most loved. And that grief was graven on the face of Túrin, and it never faded. So it's not as though Túrin kind of recovers from this and moves on. This is something that he carries the rest of his life. And I can feel compassion for him.
And Beleg could have just roused him awake a little bit first before cutting.
You might have been a good idea.
Might have been, he's in the middle of an enemy camp. Maybe before you bring out a blade, you say, "Hey, buddy, it's me, Beleg. I'm going to cut your bonds. Just stay quiet a minute." Yeah.
And then later on, when Túrin looks at Gwyndor and says, "Who are you?" and Gwyndor says, "A wandering elf, a thrall escaped, whom Beleg met and comforted," said Gwyndor. "Yet once I was Gwyndor, son of Gwylion, a lord of Nargothrond, until I went to the near northern Noidad and was enslaved in Angband." "Then have you seen Horin, son of Galdor, the warrior of Dorloman?" said Túrin. "I have not seen him," said Gwyndor, "but rumor of him runs through Angband, that he still defies Morgoth, and Morgoth has laid a curse upon him and all his kin." "That I do believe," said Túrin. "The hero knows that he is cursed, yet he still keeps on going, hoping to defy the evil." Again, this is right out of Greek hero stories, classic Greek tales.
I mean, the way I read it, I'll be honest with you, is that Túrin internalizes that curse. And he's kind of like, this is the cause of all my problems. And I don't believe him. The curse is a way that Túrin can avoid some accountability, right? Like the curse never made him go off and throw a cup at Cyros or make him strip, or even, I mean, I don't know if you can make someone strip in self-defense. I don't know if it works like that. I think Thingol was stretching the Doriath legal codes a little bit here. Nobody made him, and again, he was shown grace at all these moments. He made choices to not accept that grace.
He did.
He made choices to go off, and he could have gone to any other Elvish city probably and been accepted. Maybe not in Nargothrond or Gondolin, but he could have gone back to his mother in Dorloman. He could have gone to many other places besides be with a band of outlaws that are killing indiscriminately.
Yeah. And maybe at this point he feels he doesn't deserve any better company than that.
But you see how that sidesteps the accountability, right? That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, we're talking about free will versus fate here, John, and whole shelves full of books have been written, not just in a Tolkien context, but in, throughout the course of human history.
Yeah.
About how much free will do we have and how much are we fated for certain things. And in this context, in this narrative style, we need to remember that the curse of a god is a thing and will have an effect. You could argue that it was the curse of Morgoth that made sure that Túrin never really stopped and thought about his choices.
It could be.
That every choice he made was a bad choice, and the ones that weren't bad choices were, made bad by other things. I don't know. I'm not taking particular sides here, but I am seeing as I can multiple aspects of this and coming back to Tolkien's own life. And yes, this is still, to my mind, something of a late teenage mindset of whatever I do, it's going to go badly. And you know, I can see where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Given his own experiences in his life thus far, given Tolkien's own experiences in his life. You know, at the time he was so enamored of this story that he was just completely drawn into it. Now, he was enamored of the Gurlevo story, which there's no god involved at all. You know, standing over this all and cursing Gurlevo and his family. Although there may be something about the two brothers feuding and that set all this off. I'd have to go back and double check that. But in essence, all of the potential cursedness was landed on Gurlevo himself because he was raised badly. He was rocked so hard in the cradle that it fell over and, you know, possible brain trauma there kind of thing.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You know, here's what I'm saying. I'm not doubting that the Curse of Morgoth is a tangible thing because he is a deity in this world, right? He is a level of power above the mortals, above the children of Iluvatar.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, he's not the only game in town. And I do like to think that, one, we already see that the presence of Melian and of Thingol, who has been sort of Maiified a little bit, led to him healing for a large part of his childhood, right? He did better while he was in Doriath. I think that had he tried to remain there, had he tried to do better for them and not just for himself, not just, you know, go off and be his own independent person and reject the love that was offered to him, other forces would have worked within him as well, besides the curse.
At the same time, you're not finished? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to make an additional point of, you know, that old allegory, right? You know, religious man is in a flood. He's on the top of the building. He, you know, somebody comes to drive him out of town. He says, "No, God will save me." Somebody comes to pick him up in a boat. "No, God will save me." Helicopter comes. "No, God will save me." He gets to the afterlife. He says, "God, why didn't you save me?" "Well, I sent you 3 people to save you." Right.
Right.
How many times?
What are you doing here?
How many times does Beleg Strongbow have to come and say, "You are pardoned, come home," before that's the hand of Iluvatar? That's the hand of Manwë. That's the hand of Melian. Just telling you to come home. And so I reject the solely fate portion of this.
Sure.
There has to be a free will component to this.
I absolutely.
You know, the same way, you know, we talk about, you know, Gollum being the way that Iluvatar exercises his will, the tripping of Gollum, right? Being the way that Iluvatar perhaps expresses his will and making sure that Sauron is depowered. The same way that, you know, maybe Iluvatar would have made the wind be at Thorin's back as he rode back to Doriath.
I think there's another factor at work here that neither of us has mentioned yet, and that is shame. You know, the flip side of pride is shame. I think maybe part of the reason why Túrin went off to join the Outlaws is he thought, well, I'm no better than an outlaw. I better go and join him. But it was because he was ashamed to go back to Melian and Thingol, who had treated him so well, and admit that he had done a wrong thing. And even after being told that he was pardoned, I think then the pride comes in. And, you know, oh, it was so terrible what I did. I can't possibly go back. You know. And maybe there were other things operating. Maybe Sauros had friends. I don't know. But I do think, again, maybe I'm harping on this too much, but, you know, young brain, recognizing how, you know, I'm sure he was in awe of being left with the elves and a Maia. Although I don't know, maybe you'll know that she's a Maia. Anyway, being left with, some really souped up elves. And knowing that he's a human, yes, he is one who is known and one who is the son of a very famous human. That's a lot to live up to. And so you do your best to be the best, and then you do one thing that's, out of emotion, out of anger in the moment. And suddenly you're no longer perfect. And so, okay, if I can't be perfect, I'll just be horrible. Another possibility.
No, I think that's part of it. I think a lot of people have a sunk cost fallacy in reverse, right?
Sure.
I'm already bad. Might as well be the worst.
Mm-hmm. Good bunny after bad.
I've watched the Lorax. How bad can I be? Kind of thing. I already chopped down one tree. What if I chop down them all?
Yeah.
I'm trying to make light of it, but I think that's a really good point. Is a lot of people feel lost after they've gone a little bit astray.
It's an awful lot harder to accept forgiveness than it is to forgive someone.
Mm-hmm.
I think in many ways, in many circumstances.
And
I'm not saying it was a good choice.
No, I understand what you're saying.
I'm not saying that Túrin made good choices, by and large. He made some good ones, and he made a heck of a lot of really bad ones.
And of course, a pardon implies it's not that he was found not guilty in Thingol's court. It's that he was guilty, and I forgive you anyway. Out of my, it's saying I am gracious as Thingol in forgiving you.
Exactly.
Rather than saying that acquitting you. It's not an acquittal, it's a forgiveness for a crime. I think that maybe if Baron came and said, Thingol has cleared you on all charges. You were not guilty, you were justified. That would have been one thing.
That was a little different, wasn't it?
It is different, isn't it? But also, I don't think he was justified. I don't think that would have been correct. And I think that Thingol actually pardoning him was the only way he could have avoided accountability there.
Yeah. Stripping someone naked and chasing them through the woods. Pretty intentional acts. It's one thing to say he threw the cup at Cyrus and accidentally did more damage than he intended.
Or it's one thing to say, that, and then he came at him in the woods. I knocked him out. I restrained him. I knocked him out. Something like that.
Right.
Here he is. Please keep him away from me next time. But to humiliate him like that was an act of cruelty and malice.
Which is why I think shame is part of the calculation here, or the addition, the calculus in Túrin's choices.
I guess after Cyrus said all those things about his mom, he couldn't face everybody again.
Well, that could be part of it too.
You were supposed to laugh at that, and then I was going to close on that.
I know you were. I know you were. As soon as I said those things, I thought, I bet he wanted me to laugh.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. We'll have some more of your mama jokes on the next episode of Silmarillion Stories.
Well, maybe you will, John.
No, Marilyn.
I'll do my best to recognize them and laugh at them. Okay?
I expect you to come prepared with a thesis on your mama jokes.
No, sorry. I've already done too many theses, and I have a lot of other stuff I need to do for classes I'm taking.
Fair enough. Well, you're here listening to Silmarillion Stories with our favorite Tolkien scholar, Marilyn R. Pukkila. I'm going to record the outro by myself when I decide when this is coming out, because I want it to be accurate as to what we're covering at the time.
Makes sense.
For now, Marilyn, thank you for being with me today.
Oh, John, always a delight. I love talking Tolkien with you. Thank you very much. And thank you all for listening.
Yes, and thank you for joining us next month, where we'll be finishing up the chapter, and Marilyn will be back to do that.
Woohoo! Can't wait.
We'll see you all then, and I'll see you in the outro.
Good night, everybody.
It's just me for the outro tonight, but don't worry, we have plenty of stuff coming on the Lorehounds Network. On the main feed, Alicia is going strong on her Oscars coverage. She's going through all the top picture nominees, if that's what it's called. I don't watch movies. Everybody knows that. Along with a lot of other categories like shorts and music and all these crazy things that I had no idea even were in there. Then you'll also have the wrap up of our A Night of the Seven Kingdoms coverage on the main feed. That's me, David, and Alicia, all three of us, the Triarchy, reunited for the last episode of the season, and that just dropped yesterday, so you should have that right in your feeds. If you want to get the season wrap-up, you'll have to subscribe to Properly Howard Movie Review, where you can catch the last episode of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms that we're going to have for coverage, and their Newlywed season is going to start up, and they'll start a new batch of movies where they're going to review. That's Steve and Anthony. They have a great time. It's really fun over there. Then, aside from that, we have our Pit coverage weekly on the main Lorehounds feed, so check that out if you're into medical dramas or not, because honestly, I feel like this is a show that's for everybody, even if you're into this genre or not. And on Radioactive Ramblings, they just wrapped up Fallout. I'm working with the Fallout guys to start out some Brandon Sanderson Cosmere coverage, so stay tuned for more details on that. I know a lot of book readers are on this feed, so that is probably up your alley if you're into epic fantasy. Then we have Nevermind the Music doing weekly coverage of music and psychology. They just put out an episode on Motown Philly. Very cool stuff. So don't miss an episode of that. They're every week. They are so reliable for your Tuesday morning fix. Okay, everybody, I want to give a quick thank you to all our Discord server boosters, Aaron K, Tiller the Thriller, Duve71, Athena A, Lestu, Nancy M, Ghost of Perdition, Radioactive Richard, and Adrian, and our Lore Masters, our top-tier Patreon and Supercast subscribers who we couldn't do this show without. Samartian, Michael G, Michelle E, SC, Peter OH, Nancy M, Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Andrew B, Kwang Yu, Nathan T, Sub-Zero, Aaron K, Dally V, Mothership 61, Gnarls, Kathy W, Lestu, Jeffrey B, Elisa U, Ben B, Scott F, Stephen N, Julia F, Kali S, Ilmariel, Paul K, Rocky Zim, Jessica A, Red Zippy, the TCS Dopamini, Catch It, Ellen R, Mrs. Tennant, AC Wilson, Eli W, Cassie K, Chumbaruni, Katia, Josh Liu, Paintin PDX, Corey G, Quinch, and Adrian. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next month with more Marilyn on Túrin Turambar Part 2. The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by The Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening.